Hello and welcome to Health Matters on Channels TV once again. I am Mary Alale Yusuf. A lot of people now know that the Ebola disease is caused by a virus, but EVD falls under a larger family of diseases called viral hemorrhagic fevers or viral hemorrhagic diseases. All types of viral hemorrhagic fevers are known by fever, which can become very high, bleeding disorders, shock, and death in many cases, while some viral agents cause milder illnesses. In almost 40 years of its history, this is the worst outbreak of Ebola ever. Unfortunately, anything that looks remotely like it is called Ebola. Today, we'll be looking at some viral hemorrhagic fevers, Ebola inclusive, and then some Ebola-like fevers with Dr. Ibidunni Bodeshojobi, a senior registrar at the Department of Medical Microbiology and Parasitology, Lagos University Teaching Hospital. You're welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
Let's start with what's really ailing us now, which is Ebola. I heard that it's already beginning to form into different strains. You know, they talk about the 4 or 5 basic strains of Ebola virus. And then you're hearing that what we have here is the Zaire strain, but a different form of the Zaire strain is what they have in the Congo. Should we be concerned about this? Is this something we can't handle?
Well, basically, for all the strains, apart from one of them, their manifestation and management is the same. They present the same way, from fever, bleeding, diastasis, the vomiting, and diarrhea. So the management is basically the same.
No matter what the strain?
No matter what the strain. Apart from the resting that is associated more with monkeys and chimpanzees, there has been no documented infection in human beings.
Okay, yes, that's the resting strain.
Yes.
Now, looking at what is happening in Port Harcourt, right now in Lagos, it seems as if we are beginning to breathe a sigh of relief. But Port Harcourt has so many contacts now. Looking at what is happening there, assuming we don't get any new infection, how soon do you think we can say we are free from Ebola?
Well, to leave a window period, I would say about 1 month. We know the incubation period is 21 days. We can have shorter, less than 10 days in some cases. But just to be on the safer side, I would say 1 month.
Okay, so if there's absolutely no more infection of Ebola, no more passing on of the disease, no more transmission, a month from now, we can say, okay, we're free.
Yes.
And a month from now should be early October.
Yes,
or
that should be, yes.
End of September.
Well, we'll say early October.
So can we say that our school calendar is more or less being made with wisdom? Let me put it that way.
Well, the new resumption date that has been proposed by the federal government is not bad. It's just that the schools, they have to put in adequate measures.
Okay.
I mean, educate the children, let the teachers be well enlightened about the symptoms, so that if there's any child showing that, you have a way of taking the child away from other children. With that, I can say there won't be problem. Okay,
you work at Luth, and the strike has been called off, suspended, and you're back to the hospital. What has your experience been with patients coming, you know, Ebola-like presentations? What has it been like?
Well, basically, what I would say, I won't say scary, because we've been trained on how to handle the patients. In the emergency room, actually, most of the symptoms patients will present with are Ebola-like. So what we try to do is basically triage, know those that are truly, I mean, there is an algorithm from Federal Ministry of Health. That is what we are trying to use to know patients that fell into this criteria, how we put them in an holding area, and we'll call the Ebola help to come and pick up such patients. And those that do not are taken into the emergency room for further treatment.
So would you say that patients are coming?
Patients are coming, definitely.
They are not having any bias about whether they might get a disease at the hospital?
Well, the way it is, especially the emergency room where you have acute cases, most of these patients are critically ill. So thinking of Ebola is the least on their list. They just want to get well. So they are coming.
How about their handlers, the people who are bringing them? Those ones are well enough to be worried that, do you have any Ebola patients in this place?
Well, definitely the relatives are a bit scared, but you have somebody that is very sick. I mean, if you truly love that person, you want that person to get well. And there had been education, series of education on how to handle. Basically, your hand hygiene, even in the emergency room, they don't allow relatives in anyhow. If you are not going to contribute to the care of that patient, you are not coming into the emergency room.
How is this, how do I put it, double holding area concept working? You know, experts were talking about having a kind of double reception where you have people who look like they're coming down with Ebola are put on one side, and then those you know that are other cases are put on another side, just to put the patient's minds at ease, and indeed the workers too. Is that working out fine? Yes.
I mean, that's what we are trying to do in Lutz. Basically, with triage, what that means is patients are coming in, probably brought in an ambulance or in a vehicle. So before they are brought in into the emergency room, you use your algorithm. Those that met the criteria for Ebola are put separately. There is actually an holding area that has been created in the hospital. The patients are taken there, and those that did not fit into the criteria are brought in into the emergency room.
How about the PPEs? Are you having any problem there, or are they adequate enough and good enough for use?
Well, the PPEs are available. I will say that they are available.
Okay. Now, there have been rumors about survivors having a very hard time. People who have come out of Ebola and perhaps their neighbors know them. I even heard of somebody who lost his job. Are you getting any stories like that, and what can be done about it?
Well, it's not strange. It's just like the era of HIV. When you know somebody is HIV positive, you want to move away from the person as much as possible, even with HIV that has treatment. Not to now talk of Ebola, that there is no treatment. Though the person has survived, but knowing who we are, the stigmatization is still there. So basically what we are trying to do is to educate the public. This person has been through it. He has survived it. So he's not going to infect you. I mean, you can see Dr. Ken. He's talking, he's moving around. People are not running.
Yes, Ken Brantley.
Exactly. So those are examples that we can show to people. Same thing with the lady. They are doing well, and they are moving about. So our own case shouldn't be different. We have Ebola survivor group. You know, it's not something...
Oh, there's a group already?
Yes, not in Nigeria, in the East Africa where Ebola is.
But how about here? Shouldn't we have an Ebola survivors group, at least for them to help each other, give each other some morale boosting?
Well, it won't be a bad idea. I mean, for them to know that I'm not the only person that's passed through this. There's a kind of comforting feeling that you get that, okay, somebody has been through it. We can share our experience. And then people that are also passing through it, you can say, okay, this is just a trying time. With time, once you present early, properly manage, you are going to pull through. So it won't be a bad idea.
Essentially, you're telling us that we just need a bit of time and we'll get used to the idea that this person is not going to infect me just because he's been through it. Except that in the case of Ebola, it's a bit deadlier than other things we've come across. AIDS, we finally learned that AIDS cannot be passed by touch. We got to know that chicken pox will die before you do, you know, but Ebola is a bit different, so maybe we really need to put some attention there.
Well, no problem. But one thing that I will say for the survivors, basically the issue, federal government can create that platform. They know them, so create a platform for them where they can meet together, share their experience, and with time, let them be presented to the public, share their experience, and people will come to accept them that they've been through it. They are not infectious, so they are proper and regular member of the society.
I mean, you touch them, don't you?
We do, though not with our bare and, yes. I mean, universal precaution all the time. But
of course,
once they are through with the infection, they've recovered, there's no problem.
Tell us some of the hemorrhagic fevers that, you know, the hemorrhagic fevers generally. Give us some of the names of those.
Well, basically, the hemorrhagic fever, the way it is, they are caused by viruses. What they have in common is the hemorrhagic presentation. There are 4 different families. We have the arenoviridae, we have the Beyandviridae, we have the flaviviridae, and the filoviridae, where Ebola and Marburg, they actually...
Yes, Marburg and Ebola are from the same family.
Yes, yes.
So, do they present the same way?
Ebola and Marburg, their presentation is very close. It's just that with Marburg, you have a shorter incubation period. We're talking about 9 days, 3 to 9 days incubation period for Marburg. Though Ebola Ebola virus incubation period too. We know of 2 to 21 days, but occasionally you can have it shorter. So both of them, their presentation is almost the same.
So which of these hemorrhagic fevers are peculiar to first Africa and then Nigeria?
Basically, all that I've mentioned, Arena, which Lassa is part
Lassa,
of. Yes,
okay.
Lassa is there. The Bian viridae, we don't have so much of that in Nigeria. That is where the Crimean Congo hemorrhagic fever falls into. We have the Flavi, the yellow fever, the dengue. We have the West Nile. We have the
and
Japanese.
Those happen in Africa and Nigeria.
Yes,
of course, yellow fever, everybody knows about that now.
We have that. And then the phyllo, which is Ebola and Marburg, we have them in Africa. So basically the one that is, will I say, very present in Nigeria is the Lassa. We have yellow fever, we have dengue, and now the case of Ebola that is in Nigeria. But all the other ones are available in other African countries. And also Southeast Asia. Is
it possible, okay, that's a map of Ebola and malaria across the world. Now that orange part of the map, what is that? Is that Ebola or malaria? They're talking about the occurrence of both malaria and Ebola, you know, with different colors there.
Well, basically, the orange part, we have Africa as part of that, and Ebola is in Africa, is in Nigeria. So you have that. The other one there, I can't see it properly.
You can't quite see.
Yes.
But that means that Ebola is across Africa and see part of the other continent up there. What's that?
The Marburg,
Asia.
Marburg actually, the first place where it was recorded was in Germany and
Frankfurt, Frankfurt and Marburg.
Yes, and Yugoslavia. Basically, you have.
But does that happen here?
The Marburg
fever.
Yes, it does.
And
not in Nigeria.
Bats cause that too.
Well, you know one thing with the Filoviridae, this bat, they are not, how will I describe it? Not so specific. It's more of suspicion, because you have studies that are being done that you take some bats, maybe out of 20, you're able to isolate the virus in 1 or 2.
Okay, so it's not really every bat.
Exactly.
But really, this brings me to the question, are bats any good to us? Can't we just get rid of them? I mean, I know it's a simplistic question, but they cause diseases.
Yes, they do. There are so many animals too that cause diseases.
Other animals.
Exactly. I mean, do you want to say you want to kill dogs because of rabies? So if you look at animal control, you have to weigh the options before thinking of the bat control. We have bats in some countries that are not known for these viruses. So why do you want